Yeah, I'm often asked whether there is a generic quality issue in the standard of training that we see in the UK today, and what can be done to improve the situation. I think the first thing one should say is that it has improved greatly in recent years. I mean, looking back at my own background of attending training courses in industry, they were death by PowerPoint. That was when PowerPoint became available. It was quite late on in my career. But generally speaking, it was stand up and deliver presentations. And it was dumping knowledge on an audience and hoping that some of it would stick when they go out of the classroom. And I think in the last 15 to 20 years, there has been a significant improvement in that. And I believe that a lot of that is down to the TAP program, because you now have something like 26,000 practitioners that are delivering training to a standard that is interactive, which is learner-centered, which is participatory, and which ultimately is going to deliver more learning effectiveness. So things have improved significantly. But if we look at where the skills are for the UK generally in an international global context, it's clear that we lag behind many of our competitor countries in the skills of our people. So one would have to say that we're not doing that well in terms of the training and development of the workforce. First of all, we need to change senior leaders' attitudes towards training in the UK. I've spoken to many hundreds of senior people over the last 20 years or so. Generally speaking, senior managers regard training as an overhead, as an expense of the business, not as a wealth creator. In the US, I think it's different. In the US, there is a perception that every dollar invested in training will produce a bigger return. One company, DuPont, I remember, produced some research that showed for every dollar they spent on training, they got $33 back. Incredible return. Well, in the UK, I'm afraid we don't have that at all. We have the perception it's a necessary evil in many cases, not always. But, progressive organisations, progressive employers, progressive CEOs and leaders fully get it, but too few of them fully get it. So when difficult times come around, the first thing that goes is training. The first budget to be cut, in many cases in the recession, was the training budget. That is disappointing. So unless we can actually change the attitude of many senior executives towards the training and development of their people, we have a problem. Some of it is understandable in a sense. We have a short-termist structure in this country for our businesses. Most businesses are financed by bank overdraft for those that can actually achieve a bank overdraft today. Overdrafts are technically repayable on demand. And that mitigates against investment in the medium and long-term development of people. So there are some structural problems we have, which I don't know how to fix those, actually. So what we're looking for are leaders that actually do get it, that actually see that they will get a better return on training their people than not training them. So it's an attitude change that we would need to start with in terms of improving the standard of training. But then you look at take an organisation where the CEO fully gets it. He has got a head of learning that he has a relationship with personally, and it doesn't just go through an intermediary like HR director, for example. And in the US, by the way, over half the Fortune 500 companies have a chief learning officer that reports to the board. We don't have that concept over here. We have that intermediary role through HR, director level, which often means that heads of learning, no matter how competent they are and how progressive they are and how visionary they are, they don't get the platform of opportunity to represent their case at a high enough level. But let's say that you have got a CEO and a board that fully gets it and wants to develop the workforce in the right way. How do we improve the quality of training there? I think that's possibly the question that we need to answer here now. The first thing is we need to recruit the right people. As I said before, when you become a manager, it's often because you were good at the subject. When you become a trainer, it's often because you were technically competent in that subject. We know that the great majority, perhaps 82% or even higher in some sectors of trainers stumble into a training role through being good at the subject. Oh, John, he knows about Microsoft Word, he can go and train them in Microsoft Word or whatever it is. Or the software developer, oh, they develop the software, they can go and train those people. Or the product design people, they design that product, they can go and train the front line or whatever. So often the trainer route to becoming a trainer is from a technical subject matter background, and very little regard is paid to their emotional capability, their character and their personality to be a trainer. See, because what we know is that by tracking ourselves hundreds of trainers and their capability and comparing good trainers' results with tracking the good trainers, see what do they do in the classroom or in the training environment that's different to their peers. And we know that it's all about engagement with the learners, it's all about interaction, it's all about facilitation of learning, helping the learners towards their own self-directed journey of learning, rather than trying to fill them up with what the trainer wants. In other words, making learning learner-centred and not trainer-centred. We don't need any more the sage on the stage approach, a presenter that just bores you to death with their instruction. We want the guide on the side who's actually going to help you to achieve your own learning objectives. And therefore recruiting people that are highly directive, highly directional in their approach to life, which often can be if you're a technical expert, is not the right way to go. And we've done some research with some of our customers that shows that something like 25% of all current trainers probably shouldn't be trainers. They're not emotionally and personality-wise set up, if you like, to be an effective communicator and facilitator of others' learning. They're too directive, they're too directional, they're too presentational. So I think the first thing that to improve a situation is to review your training team, review the training structure, perhaps use some form of psychometric profiling. We use our self-DISCUS here, the DISC profiling system, which looks at the dominance, influence, steadiness and compliance aspects of a person's personality. And what you're looking for is a specific model for that would be indicative of somebody very appropriate for a training role. But equally, the opposite model would show you somebody that isn't. So somebody that's a very high D and low influence would not be a good trainer. High dominance, highly instructive, highly instructional, but low influence, low persuasion skills, low negotiation skills and persuasion skills. Not very good. That was what I would say first is that could be done. When you're recruiting a trainer or a training team, give due regard to not only the competence of the technical subject matter, but the character of the individual, the character, and the personality and the emotional quotient or the EQ of that individual. And that will be a better guide for you than just taking it on pure competence. Then, having got the right people, focus needs to be given on professional development of their skills. Right? It used to be said that a trainer's skills is like the cobbler's children's shoes. They're the last to be addressed and the last to be attended. The trainer spends all their time helping others develop their skills, but in fact, their skills are often left well behind. It's assumed that once a trainer, always a trainer. Oh, he did a certificate in training practice 22 years ago. He's bound to have learned a lot in 22 years. Why does he know to go on a training course? He doesn't need to go on a training course. The fact is, he might have had 22 years' experience, but it might have been 1 year's experience 22 times. He might be doing the same thing he did 22 years ago. Maybe things have not moved on for that person because they've not been given those additional training and development as needed. I think it's a sadness, actually, that trainers don't get attention of their skills in a way that most other people in the workplace do. And it's a very self-defeating concept because the return on investment you get from developing a trainer is higher than any other person in an organisation. Once you've got the right trainers and you're developing them and their skills are there, you do need a robust operational system to ensure that learning is effective. So it's not just done for training's sake. It's not just sheep dipping everybody through the same process ineffectively, whether they need it or not. So you have to have effective design standards, consistent design standards, delivery standards, coaching standards, facilitation standards. All those abilities that a trainer displays are best served if they meet objective best practice standards. So implementing a standards-driven procedure for the operational procedure for the training team is obviously essential. You need to be able to measure the results as a head of learning if you want to really make a difference. Measure the results in a way that your senior directors want you to do. You see, unfortunately, heads of learning over the years have tended to measure things that are of no interest whatsoever if you're a CEO. As a CEO, do I want to know how many events my training team have run? Do I want to know how many bums on seats they've had? Do I want to know how many training days that we've done? No. I want to know what's the impact of that on the business. How have you measured the impact of that on our business results? And heads of learning have shrunk away from that because it's quite difficult to do. It's easy to count widgets and count numbers and count things, isn't it? But it's not so easy to measure the effectiveness of learning outcomes by reference to what goes on there or afterwards in the workplace, the effect on the business. So I would say that if you're going to improve the quality of training, you need to get more resources and funding in the organisation to do that. That means convincing the senior managers that what you're producing is producing a bottom line advantage to the organisation. And therefore, you've got to start measuring the right things. And that's where an effective learning transfer system is all important, because once you can get the collaboration and the team spirit of learning and development, you're getting better results right from the off. And then you're more likely to measure them effectively because you know that it's working. You're more likely to put your mind to how do we measure it more effectively because you know that it's working. So yes, we have a challenge to improve. We're always needing to improve the quality of training. And I think that starting with, have we got the right people? Are they being skilled and developed and trained in the right way? And do we have the right processes in place to ensure guaranteed consistency and effectiveness of learning experiences? And have we got a robust system for transferring that learning back to the job? Those things, all of those things, would help us to improve the quality of our training.